So hello and welcome. So my name is Renee Little, and for those who don't know me, I am the owner of Live It Nutrition, which we might be having a name change soon, so stay tuned. I'm a registered dietitian and intuitive eating counselor, and I help busy women to improve their relationship with food so they can nourish their body and live a vibrant life. So today I have a video blog interview. And so these interviews are to highlight women who are thriving in their business, who are serving people in unique and compassionate ways, and who also align with the non-diet and health at every size approach. So either in their personal life or their business life. So I'm really excited to interview my guest, Tia Bell. She's a personal development coach. She specializes in burnout and overall life stresses. And Tia recently started up her own business, and her and I originally connected on Instagram. So Tia's doing some just such meaningful work to help support individuals navigate burnout and come out kind of on the other side. So welcome, Tia.
Oh, thank you, Renee. I'm super excited to be here. And we've been talking for probably the last year. I guess it's a year now because it's November.
Yes.
So it's kind of our anniversary, which is really cool.
Our anniversary.
Yeah.
Yay.
It's always neat to hear when somebody talks about you and hear it from their lens and their focus, which is really cool. So yeah, but I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So I would love you to tell all of our viewers a little more about yourself and your business, because my introduction was pretty brief. So I'd love people to get to know you a bit more.
Sure. I'll try not to talk for hours because I generally just like talking and just connecting. So I would say that my number one is probably just being a people person. I love working with people and hearing people's stories. So my background is social work. I'm a registered social worker. I've been a social worker for 7 years now, I think it's been. And it's always been just the connection of people. From that, I worked with women that were experiencing probably the biggest life changes ever for themselves. They were leaving unhealthy relationships and transitioning into figuring out what the rest of their life looked like after having massive change happening for them. So I helped transition them from where they were at, working through their emotions and also their physical needs and their financial needs and working through that. I did that and I loved it for many, many years. And then what I noticed that I started to shift in my own career was working towards helping the new social workers that were coming on and the new staff that were coming on and supporting and guiding them through what they were doing. I did it naturally, and there wasn't a leadership role because the leadership team that we had where I worked was fantastic and they were going to stay there forever. So there was no growth for me in that sense. But so what happened for myself was I ended up taking the skills that I had and what I was doing and started doing things on the side. I guess you would call it a side hustle.
Side hustle, yep.
Right? Where pretty much everything starts. I think that's where we test the waters and see how it goes.
Definitely.
But I was starting to experience burnout and feeling stuck overall in my career. I couldn't see what the next year looked like, what the path I was going on. And then somebody said to me, hey, would you supervise me? And for a social worker, when you start off in your practice, you are on probation for your registration for so many hours. And so you need to have somebody that either where you work or just another registered social worker guiding you through that and making sure that you're on track and that you're ethical and you're understanding the concepts of social work, essentially. So somebody asked me to be their person, and I was thrilled to jump on board with that. And then at the same time, I was trying to develop my own skills, and I had done a coaching course. And from that, I I fell in love, because it was language that was very similar to social work, but slightly different. The process and the way that we went about things was pretty much the same. The empowering somebody, the working through the mental struggles and finding your own conclusion, and receiving the support. That was really cool.
Where did you
So
do that program from?
that was through Essential Impacts.
Oh, okay.
So they are in Calgary,
Oh, okay.
and there's multiple different levels that you can do. I did a 3-day one,
Mhm.
which it's called the Seed program. If you
Mhm.
ever do it, I highly recommend it.
Mm.
I had 2 other coworkers that did it before me, and even if you don't take it for coaching purposes,
Mhm.
it's just overall a neat skill to have, and like you're coaching throughout it.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
it
so
was
that
really, yeah.
did that kind of help you then kind of shift your mindset into where you might want to go with your side hustle, like, and
Yeah,
kind of transform it a
yeah.
bit?
So then I started shifting things with the first person I started supervising, and she was open to it, and I noticed how when I took approach of coaching versus, I guess, supervising in a way,
Mm-hmm.
um, it just elevated things for her so much more. And the confidence within herself and acknowledging her own worth, it was really beautiful. And I loved doing, working with her through that. And then from there, it kept popping up in different ways. And eventually I got to the point where I had a big change in the role that I was working. My hours were changing, and the type of work that I was doing was changing, mostly based off of, it wasn't for me, but it was what our nonprofit needed at the time.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And it was hard at first, but then I realized it was a blessing, because it was a moment for me to say it was time for me to shift into something new and jump into
Mhm.
something new.
So it kind of gave you that like opportunity for shift and change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a plan, and it was going to be 3 years from then that I was going to start doing it more part-time, and like, it was a very slow growth plan that I had.
Yeah.
And then this circumstance came up, and I was like, well, let's
Let's
start the
go.
plan.
Yeah.
Let's go all in and give it a go. So and from there, it's been magical. It's been wonderful. And so that's where I've launched really my personal development coaching practice, and social work as well, and mostly supporting individuals that are experiencing life challenges and coming up to those roadblocks, and supporting them as they are exploring that. Sometimes it's in the form of burnout. Other times it's getting to that next step in their career. It happens in a few different ways. Uh, my very first client, which I absolutely loved, was actually going, they were in retirement, and they were
Oh.
kind of getting themselves back into retirement after picking up a second career. So it happens anywhere, and it was really cool, and it's been amazing experience all this whole time.
Very interesting. So you help people not just with burnout, but also with transitions in their life, maybe different like career challenges, or even in their career, trying to maybe even find a different path if they kind of want. What kind of other things have you helped people with? Just like I'm curious to
Yeah.
hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, it's the mental support of overcoming a challenge. And sometimes we don't even know what that challenge is, but it's really figuring out, where do I want to go, and being completely stuck. So it's the ones that are completely stuck, and not sure how to navigate moving forward anymore.
Mhm.
Um, or the progression is too slow for them, and they're getting anxious and overwhelmed with what's happening.
Mhm.
And my focus is always to support somebody in finding what their purpose is and what their values are and connecting them to that, if that makes sense.
It
So,
does. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot of that type of work myself, obviously, with being a new business owner, just trying to kind of feel where is my purpose and how do I want to, move in my own business. So yeah,
Mhm.
very valuable. I've had lots of coaches and they've done the similar work to what you do. And it's been just so valuable in my business for sure.
Yeah. And I love that you can work with, and I encourage people to work with multiple different coaches
Yeah.
because you get something different from every single coach. Just like when you listen to a podcast, you get something different from every podcaster you listen to, even if they're all about business or all about marketing or whatever it is. But we all have a different perspective, the way that we see the world, the way that our heart guides us. And I think that it's what you need in that moment, and that's the most valuable piece of it, is what are you needing in that moment and what you're walking away with that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, I've worked, I think it's been with 3 different coaches, and yeah, each person has definitely like propelled me along in a very unique way for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your work definitely strikes a chord with me because we had chatted before when you started your burnout research that I had also experienced burnout in the past. And I really didn't know that it was burnout when I was in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really have any support when I was going through it either. And it manifested in many different ways. And so I know personally how much individuals need your help. And so that's why I'm so excited that you're doing this work. So I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about how we first got connected. So when I guess that was like a year ago, like you had said. So about a year ago, I posted a story on Instagram. And it was about my opinion that physicians should not recommend weight loss to their clients because sustainable weight loss is really difficult for most people, and disease conditions like high blood pressure, um, cholesterol, that kind of those kind of things, diabetes, can be managed and treated very well with things like medication, diet, activity, stress reduction, coaching, like you're offering, and other treatments without having to pursue weight loss. So you had sent me a message because your physician had recommended that you lose weight because of the treatment of your high blood pressure. And we had talked like a lot since then. And I know your opinion has evolved a bit. So can you talk a little bit about your evolution of thoughts of weight loss as a treatment to now kind of more being rooted in the health at every size approach, and how that's made an impact in not just your life and how you kind of thrive in your life, but also in your business and how you work with your clients in a different way
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yes. Yeah. So I have high blood pressure. I had it we think that it was probably underlying and never really caught before, but it came on when I was pregnant with my daughter. So it was gestational hypertension,
Mhm.
the fancy medical term for
Mhm.
it, I guess.
Yep.
and
Yep.
um and it was, for the most part, it's something that you don't really notice anything about. Like
Right.
high blood pressure, you can't, there's no symptoms or anything that you really notice. It just happened to be during regular checkups.
Mhm.
I was blessed with being told that I had to take 2 months off before having my daughter. So I had 2 wonderful months to myself.
Nice.
Felt,
Amazing.
felt great about it.
Yeah.
My husband's perspective, though, was 2 months of extreme concern, extreme anxiety. But I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm fine, honey. I'm good. But so during all that time and while being pregnant with her, because it was gestational, the thoughts were going to be that after I had her, within time, it should go away. It should kind of level out on itself. And it didn't.
Mhm.
So I went for 24-hour blood pressure tests, and which are awful. I
Yeah.
recommend doing one every
Mhm.
year if you have high blood pressure, because it also lets you know so much. But
Mhm.
it was awful. It was restricting. in what I could do, because there's a
You had
cuff
to
on your,
wear the cuff, right? Like all the time.
you
Yep.
sleep with it. I was nursing my daughter at the time, and that was the hardest thing, to try to nurse
I
her and have it
bet.
come off.
Yeah.
Um,
Was it
so
distracting for her?
no, she was
Oh.
fine,
Oh,
but
okay. Mhm.
to position and then have like your arm just fully, you can't move your arm. It's
Mhm.
completely stuck, and you have to wait till it then goes down. And so if she was crying and needing to go to the other
You were
side,
just like, you couldn't move.
I'm sorry, honey. This is so it was an experience for sure. But I'm glad that I did it, because it was good markers for myself. But then through conversations, eventually my doctor kind of tried to guide me towards losing weight, and that would be the answer. So I worked really hard at it, and my biggest thing was I didn't want to go on medication.
Mhm.
I ended up going on medication. So I kept pushing things and pushing things. So I thought, weight loss would be the answer, and did that, and it wasn't the answer, because I did a significant amount of weight loss that would have helped,
Mhm.
but it didn't change anything. And so I went on medication,
Mhm.
and it was very disheartening,
Mhm.
because there was the whole idea that just losing weight would fix everything, and that I wouldn't be able to, like, I wouldn't be stuck taking medications every morning, um and feeling like, at the time, I'm 30 now, but at the time I was like, I was 20, well, I guess I would have been 29 last year, but still the whole process was 28. I'm like, I'm so young, I don't need to take
Mhm.
medication.
Absolutely. Did you
Um,
feel a bit of like that stigma too? Like the medication was like a failure, or like kind of any of
yes,
that sort of like, yeah, I feel like that's a very common thread I hear,
yeah,
people saying that.
because it was so tied to, if my weight and health was, if my weight was managed, if it was in controlled and in a good way, then I didn't I wasn't going to be punished with having to take medication. Like, that's how I eventually internalized it, essentially. Not that it was really said that way, but how I
Mhm.
internalized it.
Yeah. Mhm.
And weight loss has always been, to kind of back up some more.
Mhm.
I've I journal, and I was looking, when we started talking about connecting, I looked back at my journals, and one of my very first journals, I was 10 years old, and that's when I started talking about my weight and going on a diet. And I realized, oh my goodness, I've been on diets for my entire life,
Mhm.
and restricting it in some ways, and sometimes paying lots of money towards bigger name diet companies. And
Yep.
um,
I never
that
really, did you ever really acknowledge it as a diet at that time, like kind of going through that?
um, I I always acknowledge them um as kind of programs, I guess, in
Mhm.
some ways. They
Yep.
weren't really diets, because I never did a diet on my own
Mhm.
separately, that I was fully aware of. Like, I
Right.
didn't try to count or do things that were completely separate off of paying for a program to do
Right.
it,
Yeah.
for that accountability with it.
Mhm.
um, so but in all of those, like, every single time I was successful in some ways, but then as soon as I stopped, it was tenfold. Like, I
Mhm.
gained everything back plus more.
Mhm.
And it was really challenging in those times. And so when I came to the point of saying, okay, again, lose weight, and then you won't have to take these pills
Yep.
to save you, and things like
Mhm.
that. It was it everything came back up again. I'm like,
Totally.
like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so the really, really cool thing, though, that was during probably the peak of my burnout, what that I was experiencing.
Mhm.
but the start of my awareness of what was happening. So I think through our conversations, that is when I started to realize that I can do a lot more for myself and be a lot more responsible for myself in ways that didn't just have to do with my weight. That was me trying to control an outcome that I was just trying to push against of medication, of
Right.
trying to care for myself in a different way.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I was able to bring more awareness into, okay, what does my mental health look like? What is my, it's not just about my physical health, but what does my whole body look like and my whole mind look like? And what am I wanting to do with it?
Yep.
The the moments when my arm was completely restricted by my blood pressure test, those were moments when I realized it's not about, I mean, anybody can have their blood pressure taken and they're going to feel the same restriction,
Yep.
but I want my body to be able to carry my daughter and hold my daughter and run with my daughter and play hide and
Yep.
seek with her. And my weight doesn't determine that. It's my ability to be here that determines that, and my ability to work towards things that if we want to climb a mountain together, then we make that our goal. I don't have to
Yep.
be a certain weight to do it.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
a lot of those conversations shifted for me.
Mhm. Nice.
And then it was when I had that big moment, that big, all right, my decision to finally leave my secure nonprofit benefits and all that
Mhm.
security net and safety
Yeah.
that I decided to leave behind. Um,
Yay.
a month,
Be an entrepreneur and
right?
yeah,
Step into this world of unknown.
totally.
That's when a month later, I did my repeat blood pressure monitor,
Mhm.
and my blood pressure had come down, and
Amazing.
nothing had changed with my weight. Nothing had, like, after we talked, like, I was like, well, I'm taking medication. Screw this.
Yeah.
I don't need to go down that path anymore. So, and a lot of things that we had talked about too. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I had that where a month later, it's like the only thing that has changed is the fact that I was no longer under a extreme stress and extreme anxiety, and there was
Mm.
a lot of wonderful things about the place that I worked, but it was also very restrictive in where I could go with my career and my future.
Mhm.
So it was, and it was very hard for me to make that decision and bring my family into a different financial situation,
Totally.
but it was also really rewarding to see that the decision I made was for me and for my family and for what our future looked like, and that impacted my blood pressure in such a
Mhm.
positive way that I was able to reduce some of my medication, which was really cool. And
Yeah.
I'm still on it, and I'll be on it for a long time, but it
Which is
was,
okay.
that was a reward in a sense of I'm doing exactly what I need to do.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so like I just love to hear like your kind of just sort of journey through kind of the traditional like kind of weight management approach where we are rooted in like so many things we blame on weight, and then when we get to this ideal weight, apparently we're supposed to have everything in the world given to us and come to us, right? And yeah, like that's just not the case. And for you, that just really highlights that truth that, like,
Mhm.
when you looked at kind of other things in your life that really needed to be focused on, then your health, your physical health followed, right? And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's so, you listen to your gut, you listen to kind of, yeah, what you needed. And then as a result, you saw physical changes in your body, which was amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to also like just highlight is when your clients come to you as well, I'm sure you probably also hear sometimes some things about like in their life, they're unhappy with their weight. Um, we chatted about that last time we talked. Yeah. And so how now do you kind of approach your clients differently or maybe now than you would have in the past with kind of your new mindset as well.
Yeah. I always come down to what is the purpose of you doing XYZ? What is the meaning behind it and what's the purpose? And sometimes we have to go through a few steps to get to that real deep core meaning behind it. But when I was working in the shelter, the women that I worked with, one of the like probably 90% of the women that came through, the very first thing that they wanted to do was to start an exercise program. And they were very cautious about what they were eating and going on some sort of diet. And it was in a form of trying to control something in their life, because everything is completely flipped upside down. There's absolutely they don't know the space anymore. They're in a completely different room than their house. They are surrounded by people that are strangers that they're yet having to be extremely vulnerable with. So over and over again, it was always about that controlling piece of trying to control something in their lives. And so I've even taken that and my awareness of what I was trying to do and the conversations I've had and our conversations, and with the clients that I work with now, I take them deeper into that of what's that purpose, especially when somebody's talking about burnout and then they're telling me that they're getting up at 5 a.m. to go for a workout. Like, what is that doing for you? And if that provides you clarity, and if that provides you an hour where you are energized and you get clear and you get everything that you're needing from that, and that really sets your day up in a positive way where you can move forward and you can take action on things, that is a beautiful purpose. But if your purpose is because you need to lose 10 pounds before you can get your first client, or if you need to lose weight to get to something, then that's probably not a healthy purpose, and that you're constantly pushing yourself towards something that is going to overwhelm you even more and take you completely off track of what really is happening. Sometimes it's avoidance of fear and anxiety about what we're actually doing and wanting to put ourselves out there. And so we can then shift everything towards, well, I'm just going to create a diet, or I'm going to go on this diet, or I'm going to do this extreme workout and focus on that. But that's because we're avoiding a different area in our lives. So we go deeper into those conversations.
Yeah, which is so needed and so valuable. I must say too, like when I explore kind of some of those things with clients too, like their values and just emotions around their body and food, some things unearth sometimes, right? Like all of a sudden it's like, oh, actually this is really happening instead. And we probably need to explore that a bit more instead of just thinking I need to lose weight. It's like we need to explore other areas of their life that aren't going well potentially too. Yeah. That they're trying to avoid or get distracted from a little bit. Yeah. So that was so fantastic. I want you to now just talk a little bit about how people can find you and anything coming up that you have that you wanted to share with people as well.
Yeah. So you can find me on most social media things, but I think the best thing is to go to my website, tiabell.com, nice and simple. And then otherwise, my Instagram and Facebook is tiabell.unscriptedco, because I go off the cuff and completely unscripted in everything that I do. So I can be provided a script. I can anything. My own videos, I'm way off. I can't even plan for them. So so yeah. So
very authentic.
Right, very authentic. So if you want to follow me there or connect, I absolutely love going for coffee with people or tea, as the personal connections are the biggest things for me. I had somebody connect with me last week that was a complete stranger and said, hey, do you want to go for coffee? No idea why she wanted to go for coffee. And I said, yes. So if anybody ever wants to do that, I'm game 100%. I primarily work out of Okotoks, and I also work out of a clinic in High River. So that's where I do a burnout clinic there, and usually the first and third Wednesday of every month. But for more information with those ones and upcoming workshops that I do, the best place would be just to check out my website, tiabell.com.
Perfect. Nice. And I'll link that under our video on my blog as well.
This was wonderful chatting, Renee, and I know we could chat for hours and
absolutely
so many things we can talk about, but
no one would want to listen for hours. But we could talk for hours. We would love it. Right. Yeah, thank you so much, Tia. It's been just a pleasure, and I just really love the work that you're doing. I think it's amazing, and I want everyone to know about it. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. The feeling is mutual for sure. I send people your way all the time just because I think it's beautiful the way you say things and how you share and how you care and the way that you can connect. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. It's been just fantastic to connect with Tia, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So that's all for now. Have a really wonderful day.